Hi, I'm Robert Kostin, a faculty lecturer at the Rochester Institute of Technology, and I'm here on the RIT campus with advice that I wish more college students heard early on in their academic careers. So, as a college student, you want to make sure that all of your grades are as high as they can possibly be in every course you take. So if there's something you can do to help yourself, especially if it's something, embarrassingly simple, you should probably know what it is. You need to say your own name every time you talk with any of your professors. And the reason for that is more than just making some personal connection with your professor, which is a good thing, but that's not the important part. The reason has more to do with how grading works and what each of your professor has to deal with from their point of view. Now, there is a critical time that only happens at the end of every semester. You see, all colleges have some kind of learning management system. That's the LMS. And depending on where you go, that might be Canvas or Moodle, or here at RIT, it's something called My Courses, which is built on an LMS called Brightspace. And the key thing is that all schools have them. And that LMS is where your professor posts your assignments, enters grades, maybe gives you some feedback, maybe calculates your current average so you can see what's going on as the semester progresses. But that is not the official grading system that calculates your GPA, because at the end of the semester, your professor has to open up a separate official grade reporting system and enter your final grade there. It's usually some system with this name like Student Information System or SIS. So the way it works is that at the end of the semester, your professor will have the LMS, like Brightspace, open on one side of their screen, and then the official grading system, SIS or something like that, open up on the other side. And what they're looking at is a long list of names, just names, one after another, in a long bureaucratic trench of human beings, reduced to rows in a long scrolly table. And beside each name, there is one place to plug in one grade, an A, B, C, D, or F, or whatever the grading system your school uses. And at that point, at the end of the semester, that is the moment when you need your professor to connect your face with your name. So the easiest thing for any professor to do when entering grades in the registrar's official grading system is to simply go down the list, look at the LMS, and then copy the grade into the official system. That's it. But the point I want to make is that the professor still has the responsibility to review the grade before submitting it. And here's the thing, it's a manual process. And it makes you wonder, why can't we just, press a button and have all of those grades, sometimes hundreds of grades, automatically exported from the LMS and then sucked up by the Student Information System? Well, I think it's because the manual system opens the door for a reality check. It's the last time before the grade goes in and potentially does untoward things to your GPA that the professor can take a moment and ask themselves, does this grade make sense? This is the point where the professor could look at a name in the list and say to themselves, I remember that student. That student came by my office hours and asked good questions, or that student came to talk about the lecture. That student showed extra effort above and beyond the regular course material. And that recognition of the name, just the name in a long list of names, can make a difference. So my advice is deceptively simple. Make sure your professor memorizes your name and not just recognizes your face, because that's the easy part. That's automatic, and that's just how our brains are wired. But the key is to get your professor to associate your face with your name while you're doing all of those good things, like speaking up in class and going to office hours, asking questions and discussing the course material. That's the missing link. those interactions only help you if your professor can connect them to your actual name. So, here is the practical strategy. Use your own name whenever you speak with your professor. And that may seem awkward at first. Actually, it'll definitely seem awkward, but you have to squeeze it into the conversation. You could say something like, "Hey, Professor Kostin, Anthony Johnson, can I talk to you about, what we were talking about in the lecture?" Or, "Professor Kostin, I'm Maya Patel from your 10 a.m. class, and I had a question about the assignment," something like that. It doesn't have to be weird, even though it may feel weird, especially the first couple times you do it. But keep in mind that you are just helping your professor connect that interaction to the name that is going to appear later in the grading system at that all-important time at the end of the semester. So think of it as a small act of self-preservation in a world of drop-down menus and institutional software. One important note for international students. When you do this, make sure you use the same name that appears in the university's registration system, because that is the name that the professor has to recognize at the end of the semester. So, if you use one name socially, but a different name appears in the registrar, help your professor make that connection. So, you might say, "Professor Kostin, I go by Alex, but my name in the system is Jinny Chen." That matters because at the end of the semester, the professor is probably not looking at the same name that you use socially. They're looking at the official name in the university system. And the university system, like most large systems, does not care what name people actually use. So help your professor bridge that gap. And by the way, you could probably stop putting your name out there every time you talk with your professor when the professor gets so sick of hearing it that he or she says your name before you have a chance to say it yourself. Like when they see you coming down the hall and they say your name before you do, then you know that they know, and you could probably loosen up a bit. So if you want the strongest grade that you can earn in a course, well, do the work, study, turn things in, ask questions, and go to office hours. Engage with the material. But while you're doing those things, make sure your professor can connect your name with your face, along with your effort. Because, at the end of the semester, when your professor is looking at that long list of names, you don't want to be just another, name on the list, literally. You want your professor to look at you and look at your name and remember, you.